Afternoon and a very warm welcome to all students, practitioners, academics, interested people who have joined us today. We are celebrating the culmination of the Child Safety Week today with this panel. Uh, I am Nimisha Srivastav. I am Program Director of Council to Secure Justice, and CSJ, in partnership with Enfold Proactive Health Trust, very warmly welcomes you all to today's panel discussion on preventing and addressing violence against children through restorative practices in communities, schools, and childcare institutions. Um, Today, we are marking, as I said, the International Child Rights Day, which is the culmination of the Child Safety Week. We are also marking the last few days of the Restorative Justice Week, which ends on 22nd of November. Um, and today, we are going to be talking about restorative processes, which here I would like to quote Professor Karl Stoffer, with whom we had a very interesting discussion on restorative justice and restorative processes just the other day, who said that restorative justice and restorative processes, to paraphrase him a bit, is more than just a discussion about a justice response, and it has actually gone ahead to become a social justice movement. And it is essentially a social justice movement that is about changing our uh, inherent inherent tendency of punitive responses to any kind of wrongdoing or harm. Whether we look at the responses of existing educational systems that we often see sometimes in many contexts, such as expulsion or suspension, that may cause further harm to children, contrary to the goals of education. Similarly, media responses to the wrongdoing of children and adolescents are very often punitive in nature and seek harsher punishment to address any harm by children. The organizations that are presenting this panel today, Enfold and CSJ, have seen that within the juvenile justice system as well, there is a need to explore alternatives to institutionalization and the adult treatment of children in conflict with law. Shaming or institutionalization, as we have seen, can, rather than preventing further harm, push children to cause further harm. Restorative approaches, which we are going to be focusing on today, offer a different lens towards harm and wrongdoing and are applied in schools, residential institutions, as well as the juvenile justice system in different countries. For instance, to quote Catherine Evans and Dorothy Vandering, who are experts in restorative processes, restorative justice in education is about facilitating learning communities that nurture the capacity of people to engage with one another and their environment in a manner that supports and respects the inherent dignity and worth of all. This is something that we are going to be focusing on today, how we need to move away from responding to violence with more violence, but instead responding with respect and engagement and communication, a more positive movement in our responses and in trying to address the issues of violence against children, sexual abuse that we have been working for so long to address. Even in the context of the justice system, restorative processes enable persons who have been harmed and those responsible for the harm, if they consent, to actively participate in processes to express needs, accountability, and decide how they can move forward in a positive way. Over the past few years, a few organizations in India have been applying restorative processes focused on community building, strengthening interpersonal relationships, and fostering a safe space within institutions to address harm restoratively. Pilots are also underway to offer age appropriate support and accountability mechanisms for children who engage in behaviors that harm others, which also we will be talking about today. These practices offer children safe spaces to be heard, to understand consent, to explore the impact of their actions, and to practice tools for decision making, dealing with difficult emotions and situations, and effective conflict resolution. This panel brings together these organizations from India, perhaps for the first time, who are working on restorative practices, who are taking forward this brilliant social justice movement with children in education as well as children in the juvenile justice system. We are organizing this panel on behalf of CSJ and Enfold. I would like to make a very quick mention of Arpan, who have supported us in coming through with the event for the Child Safety Week, and as a part of a collective of wonderful organizations working for child rights across the country. Without any further delay, I would like to hand over to the moderator of the first session, Dr. Sangeeta Saxena, who is the co-founder of Enfold Proactive Health Trust. The trust has been involved in life skills-based personal safety, gender equity, and sexuality education since 2001. Dr. Saxena, over to you.
Thank you, Nimisha. And without much ado, I would like to invite our first speaker, and I would go ahead and introduce, and that is Belinda Hopkins. May I request Belinda to please switch on her video? Belinda has been pioneering restorative approaches in youth settings across the UK and beyond for over 25 years now. In the early 90s, after a career in secondary education, she founded Transforming Conflict, one of the UK's leading providers of training and consultancy on restorative approaches in youth settings. Belinda is one of the most published authors in the world in the field of restorative approaches in both schools and care. She has played an important role in developing national practice standards for individuals and institutions, working closely with the UK Home Office for over 10 years. No one better could have addressed us today. Over to you, Belinda.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saxena. It's wonderful to be here. And first of all, I want to thank the Council to Secure Justice, to Enfold, and to Arpan for inviting me and supporting me being here. I've got some slides to share. I think you've enabled that, so that will happen in a moment. But first of all, I also want to thank Arti Mohan, because it was she who invited me. We met last summer, so long ago now, when we could actually meet and have conferences and be in the same space at the same time with each other. And she and I met, and it was a delight to meet her. And she offered me a title for this talk. She offered me a title which involved talking about vulnerabilities and violence amongst children. And I said, yes, why not? She could have invited me here to talk about bullying in schools, conflicts between students, issues around safety, issues around conflicts with staff. She could have invited me to talk about exclusion or leadership. And I would have said, yes, why not? Because all of those issues are addressed and I think appropriately held within a culture that embraces restorative practice. Now, as was explained, I've been working in this field for over 25 years now. And over that time, I have developed a way of explaining more about this restorative culture, because people they get excited by the ideas. I mean, the ideas you've just heard about, which was so well explained by Nimisha. They get excited and they want to know where to start. What can I do? And it isn't just about a set of tools for dealing with inappropriate behavior or conflict. It isn't even about behavior management per se. It's actually about looking at the way we do relationships in schools. I'm going to focus my talk on schools today. So what I'd like to do is to share some slides with you. So I'm going to share my screen, confidently hoping that I can. Yes, that's great. And I'm going to home in on this presentation. So looking at the screen here, you can see that I've divided up my talk into core beliefs, core steps, and core processes. And I've used the number 5. I've used the number 5 for explaining all of these things. And I want to start by looking at 5 core beliefs, which for me are the foundation stones of any school, but to be honest, it'll be any organization or institution or workplace that want to embed restorative practice. Now, this Prezi presentation, I have to explain, I'm quite new to Prezi, and the slides are going to come at you and then go away again and then come back at you. So I hope people haven't been eating too much just before this talk, in case they start to feel slightly nauseous with the slides coming in and out. So hang on to your seats. So I'm going to focus, first of all, on core belief number 1. This really important idea in restorative practice and in a restorative culture that everyone has a unique and valued perspective. Now, that means that we give people a voice and we don't prioritize one voice above another. If a student and a teacher fall out, we listen to both of them. This can be quite a new idea for some people, because they've both got something to say and need to be heard. And what this also means within a culture is that we create opportunities for people to be heard. And I'm going to say more about that later. Sorry for the deep dive here. The second core belief is that we're interested in what people say, but we understand that what they say and what they do are influenced by things we cannot see. What they're thinking, how they're feeling. And we understand that thinking influences feeling and feeling influences action. And by action, I also mean words. And so this means that within our restorative culture, we develop mechanisms whereby we listen to each other and we listen with great attention to what people think and feel. We actually ask questions that tries to draw these things out. I call it lowering the waterline, because it's beneath the waterline that these hidden things are found. And without taking the time to get beneath the surface, we might miss some very important things. Another core belief is this interest in the impact of what we say and what we do. My little graphic there is meant to be the ripples in a pond when you throw a pebble in. And those ripples is the impact of what we say, for better or worse. And this means that within our culture, we are considerate of each other. We think ahead. If I say that, what impact might it have? If I do that, what impact might it have? And we look back at what we've done and think, I wonder how I affected somebody by what I said or did, and be willing to put it right if I did something that caused harm. A responsibility in all of us, whether we're young or older. The fourth core belief is about needs. I'll read this slide, otherwise you'll be trying to read it while I talk. When our needs are met, we can function at our best. And it's by identifying our needs, it helps us to decide on the most useful course of action. Now, some of you might be students of Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication and be familiar with this concept of needs. We pay attention to this in our restorative culture. In my work, whether it's with restorative facilitation or whether it's in working with groups to build a sense of community, I have a set of needs cards with individual needs like support, respect, tolerance, understanding. These are core needs for all of us. And when they're met, we can function at our best. And these are important for staff teams. How many people leave a job because their needs are just being ignored or violated? They're important for staff, they're important for young people. And so we work with people to create needs for example, a classroom. And we work collaboratively, which is where the 5th core belief comes in. In the rights of the child, we have this idea of nothing about us without us. Very important today, of all days, perhaps. Those most affected by an issue are the ones best placed to find ways forward by working together. So we have a culture of inclusion, of collaboration. And of course, it's linked to the first core belief about voice. So there they are, the fundamental building blocks that we can use to create a restorative school, or indeed any institutional organisation. And what I've done is I've worked with those core beliefs to develop a 5-step process. And in fact, it was from 5-step processes that I studied in restorative practice around the world that I developed those 5 core beliefs in the first place. So here they are again, 1 to 5. And you may recognize this in your work. This is an example from restorative listening, where we start by welcoming somebody and then inviting them to talk. And our question is around, tell me what's been going on, what's happened. Number 1 is the first step, but it relates to that first core belief of giving people a voice. Number 2 is about the thinking and the feeling. What were you thinking when that was happening? How were you feeling as a result of that thought? And you might ask you might use that steps 1 and 2 together for quite a long time to help draw out somebody's story. And then you move to number 3, core belief number 3, who's been affected by what's been going on, or what's going on now, because this is not just about the past, this could be here and now. And when they've had a bit of a think about it, you move to the needs, core belief number 4. What is it you need now? And perhaps use the cards to help them identify their need. And then you move to step number 5. So what can you do, or what could be done to address those needs? Sometimes people miss out that step number 4, and they go from the storytelling and the affect straight to problem solving. But then where's your criteria? You might come up with some strategies which bear no relation to those underlying needs, and therefore will not stick, will not meet somebody's needs, will not make a difference. And when people have discussed it or thought about it, then you can move to closure. And in this particular example, move to the next step. Now, I talk about 5 different restorative processes, and it starts with thinking, which is why I've drawn a little dice with a dot in it, meaning our thinking, our what's in our heads. And we start ourselves by asking, we touch base with ourselves. I wonder what's going on for me right now, before we engage with anybody in a restorative way. And as we walk around a building, as we stop and have a conversation with somebody, we touch base with ourselves and we run through the 5 questions, the 5 steps. You can use a language that fits you, not a script. What's going on for me right now? What am I thinking? What interpretation am I putting on this? How am I feeling? How am I being affected by what I'm seeing? What are my needs? And what am I going to do about that right now? It may be that I put them to one side, because then I start to think about the other person. I wonder what's going on for that person right now. This person in front of me, this person I'm looking at, all these people in a meeting I'm at. What are they thinking? How are they feeling as a result of those thoughts? How are they being affected by this? And what do they need right now? And I wonder how they're going to move forward. If all teachers stopped before they intervened in an incident, or took a deep breath before responding to a child in a classroom, and went through these thoughts, I wonder what they're thinking and feeling right now. I wonder what they need. they would be in a very, very different space from somebody who goes in with judgment, who goes in with disapproval, who goes in with reprimand. So it's the thinking that starts everything else off. It's the mental preparation for the next 5 processes. The first of which is listening. 2 dots on the dice. Here we have an adult listening to a child, going through those 5 steps with this youngster by himself. It could just be to help him sort out a difficulty that's on his mind. This could be 2 adults using this model for supervision. This could be a leader of a school with a member of staff, or with a parent who's come in with a difficult issue. It's a framework for listening. 2 dots, 2 people. This could even be an adult and a child who themselves have fallen out and who've agreed to sit together to try and find a resolution without a third party. Now, this takes a lot of skill because the adult mustn't impose their solution or dominate. So it'd be very much a case of your turn, then my turn. Your turn, then my turn. And an extra skill here would be perhaps for each to summarize what they've heard the other one say before moving on to the next step. Another process, again using this 5 steps, would be mediation. Here we've got a photograph of a head teacher mediating between 2 students who've fallen out. If anyone's interested, I've actually got some footage of this. It was based on a real life case and was recreated with permission from the 2 girls and the head to demonstrate this process. And Artie could email me, I can share the footage. It's very interesting. This is in a primary school context. But the head teacher is using the same process, first asking one girl to tell her story, talk about her thoughts and feelings, and then the other, and helping them to find a way forward. My next dice is metaphorical. It's not necessarily 4 people. In this class, little group, you've got some children who've fallen out, who need an adult just to help them with problem solving. The more this is done in a school context, the more the children learn these skills and can do it for themselves. This is from a very wonderful special school that I've been working with for about 18 years. And the young man holding the computer is non-verbal, but very inclusive school. He types in what he needs to say and his computer speaks for him. So nobody is excluded from this. This school is a wonderful example of what a restorative school might look like. My 5 dot is something that those of you who are facilitators in youth justice settings may be more familiar with, which is the formal conference. This is a mock-up of a real conference that was run by this gentleman sitting with his back to the window. But it's an exemplar of 2 students who got into quite a serious conflict. This lad was winding this girl up to the point where he tried to set fire to her hair, would you believe? He thought it was a silly prank, but of course it was absolutely terrifying. Parents were called in. The teacher that involved was also there. And again, the same 5 steps that I introduced you to are used. So once you've learned this process, you can start to apply it with bigger numbers. A lot of preparation, by the way. You'd never bring these people together, nor with even face-to-face, without preparation with each one using that 5-step process on the 2 dice. And now the 6 dice. So we've got 5 processes and the 1 mindset. So that is 5 processes and a mindset shift. The 6 dice, the 6 dot is circles. Circles in classrooms, circles in staff rooms, circles amongst the senior leadership team, maybe every day, at least once a week, to build community. maybe to do some problem solving, but first to build community. Again, I've got some footage of these circles. Building community, using a talking piece so that everybody has a chance to say something. Maybe playing a couple of games to mix people up so that boys sit next to girls and friends meet people they haven't met before. Very, very important. Very energetic, very lively, develops emotional literacy, develops the ability to make relationships, develops the ability to listen to other people, to negotiate, agree in a productive, creative way. And all of this is a building block for taking part then in conflict resolution conversations if things go wrong. And the more you do this in a school, the less you'll have those conflicts. So these are addressing things like vulnerability. Every child feels vulnerable when they first join a school. And in a class circle like this, you start to develop safety and trust. And you can then use these safe spaces to talk about more serious issues like bullying, like violence. And the research has shown that bullying reduces, violence in schools reduce if a school has implemented this range of practices. How am I doing for time? I think I'm all right for a few more minutes. So I want to come to some aspirations. The aspirations we might have based on these 5 core beliefs. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. I need to zoom in on here by pressing this. Here we are. Core belief 1, remember, everyone has their own unique and valued perspective. And so the goal is to create a respectful, listening classroom. So our mission statement might be, the teacher and the students might come up with something like this. In this classroom, everyone matters and everyone's ideas are valued. Now, I'm not sure how to move on from this. I've just realised. Oh, here we go. I'm new to this. Bear with me. Core belief number 2. Remember, thoughts influence emotions. Emotions influence behaviour. So what we're after, what's our goal? A reflective, emotionally literate classroom. And the mission statement might be something like this. Developed with the class. Our thoughts and our feelings are invisible to others, beneath the surface. And in this classroom, we try to lower the waterline by talking about and listening out for thoughts and feelings. Core belief number 3, remember the ripple effect? We want to develop empathy and consideration. So our goal is to create a kind, caring, and considerate classroom. So our mission statement might be, in this classroom, we know that what we say or do has ripple effects on everyone else. And because we care about each other, we think before we speak or act. Core belief number 4. Remember, this is about needs and the risk if our needs are not met. So we're working towards an empathic, sensitive classroom. What might the mission statement look like? In this classroom, we know what each of us needs to give of our best. We consider everyone else's needs as much as possible as we work together. So the language of needs becomes commonplace within classrooms and out on the playground. And finally, remember that it is collective responsibility for the choices made and their outcomes. And so our goal might be a socially responsible, fully accountable, democratic classroom community. And here may be a mission statement. We're all connected. This is really important in a classroom. It's up to all of us to make this class function well. So we'll plan together, make decisions together, solve problems together, and help each other out if things go wrong. when I was a teacher, I used to ask my students, who's in charge of this class? And they would say, well, you are, miss. And I'd laugh and say, you've got to be kidding. Without your active help, this classroom will not work. This lesson will not work. You are responsible, every single one of you, for making this lesson go well, because you have the opportunity to sabotage if you want to. And that's not going to help you or anyone else. And so collectively, we worked out what the rules of engagement would be, if you like, a learning agreement. And when things went wrong, we would circle up and discuss what we were going to do to put things right. Now, I was doing that back in the early 90s before I'd heard about restorative justice. But I had been very, very influenced by people like Paulo Freire and the notion of empowering students to take more responsibility for their learning. Now, before I finish, I want to come to another very important aspect of this talk, which is about staff culture and leadership culture. Because this is not, restorative practice in schools is not just about students. It's about how to make the working environment a rewarding place to be for everyone in it. And that goes for all workplaces. So let's go back to those mission statements very quickly. You've met them. I haven't changed this slide. It says theme 1. I used to use the word theme instead of core belief. I must change these slides. So everyone has their own unique and valued perspective. Is that true for your staff team? Do they feel heard? Do you have circles? Do they feel valued? Because what you want to create is a respectful, listening workplace. And so this mission statement on your staff room wall is, in this organization, everyone matters and everyone's ideas are valued. Do you remember that slide with the youngsters sitting in a circle in the special school? I heard the head teacher present earlier this week at our Restorative Justice Council conference. And I worked with him a lot, and he has taken these and asked his staff, is this true? As a leader, am I getting this right? I'm getting feedback from them. So he's really using this as leadership statements and getting feedback to see if he's on track. Fortunately, they said yes. So going through them very quickly, and I've added these to my slide set that I've sent to Artie, and I'll send you the fresh ones, Artie, so you can leave everybody with these slides, so you can have a look in your own time, because I think I'm nearly running out of time here. But the idea is that what is true for classrooms needs also to be true for staff. Let's take an interest in what people are thinking and feeling, and create a listening, emotionally literate workplace. And the same goes for core belief number 3. In this organization, we know that what we say or do has ripple effects on everyone else. And because we care about each other, we think before we speak or act. Can you really say that about your colleagues and your team at the moment? Can you say that about the schools that you know? And what about needs? In this organization, we know what each of us needs to give of our best. We consider everyone else's needs as much as possible as we work together. Is that true for your schools? Is that true for your team? And last but not least, we're all connected. It's up to all of us to make this organization function well. So we'll plan together, make decisions together, solve problems together, and help each other out if things go wrong. It isn't just children and young people who feel vulnerable. It isn't just children and young people who experience violence. Violence comes in many, many forms, as does bullying, and adults experiencing it too. I'm going to stop sharing now because I think my time is nearly up. But I hope this gives you a flavour of what it's like to transform a culture in restorative ways, to create a safe space for students and for the staff who work with them. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Belinda, for that very simple and easy to follow and so nicely explained. And it couldn't be better opening for this panel. We are receiving questions already, which we will take after the Innisfree House School team has shared their experiences. Attendees, please post more questions, and we are sure to take them after Innisfree House School. So I will now invite the team from Innisfree, beginning with Ms. Suman Bolar. She is the administrator at Innisfree House School, who believes that schools provide important opportunities to impact and change the world we live in by teaching young minds to think again, and then think again. She is a writer, a communications specialist, and a passionate mental health advocate. Welcome, Suman.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much for having me.
We also have Mrs. Aarti Dinesh, principal of the school. In addition to that role, Mrs. Dinesh is also a teacher who specializes in economics, and she's a passionate teacher and believes in creating comfortable spaces for students to identify and nurture their interests. Welcome, Aarti.
Thank you, Dr. Saxena, for having me.
And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome students. Siddharth Setupati, student of class 9. His area of interest are playing the guitar, painting, and yoga. I also welcome Risha Shenoy, student of class 9. Her areas of interest are artwork, drawing, painting, and badminton. And then we have Mihir Yamitala, student of class 7. His area of interest are singing, playing cricket, and drawing. And we have Samhita Sriharsha, student of class 7. Her areas of interest are singing, dancing, and playing throwball. So with that, I invite Mrs. Bola to take the discussion forward and share their experiences of having restorative circles in Innisfree House School.
Thank you, Doctor, and hello, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Saxena and Enfold, not just for inviting us here today to share our experience, but also for being wonderful, wonderful partners of many, many years before things like life skills became trendy. Today, we live in a world divided. There is a seeming inability to bridge differences and divides, which are further magnified and amplified by social media. There's a lot of noise and a lot of disagreement. I am a school administrator, but I also wear other hats. One of those, and perhaps my favorite, is mom. My boys are now in their 20s. And as a mom, when my kids were growing up, I didn't have access to the internet or information. But as a parent, my instinctive approach towards raising the boys later came to be labeled as positive parenting, nonviolent communication. But this was my instinctive approach. As a person, though, I used to be somewhat judgmental. In my 30s, I met someone who taught me how being judgmental was actually detrimental, both to me as well as to the people around me. So in my personal life, I trained myself to withhold judgment and to be a better listener. There was a lot to unlearn. It was a long journey with many failures, many wrong turns. And if I'm to be very honest, a lot of pain in some of my friendships and other relationships. Emotional literacy came to me late and at a price. So when Enfold came to us with the idea of introducing restorative justice practices at our school, I was particularly intrigued by the fact that it had the potential to teach children at a very early age about things that took me over a decade to learn as an adult. How to listen and communicate better, how to refrain from rushing to judgment, and how to manage relationships. The approach seemed so gentle. And as I said earlier, the world needs more gentleness. And we need a way to be able to hear one another. There is a oneness of human experience that I think has gotten lost. I believe that children have the power to change the world. And the idea of being able as a school to empower them with this kind of skill set was appealing. So I had only two questions. When can we start? And how on earth are we going to fit it into other school activities? To answer that question, I would like to hand things over to my co-worker, our fabulous principal, Mrs. Aarti Dinesh. Aarti, over to you.
Thank you, Suman, and good evening, all of you. And I would like to thank Enfold for organizing this webinar and giving us this platform to share our thoughts on something that actually Enfold introduced us to, restorative practices. Let me share what actually Innisfree stands for, or what exactly we believe in. See, right from the beginning at Innisfree, we have always believed and worked towards creating a happy, comfortable, and a safe environment for our students. Because we strongly believe that a sense of comfort and safety will aid development, be it socio-emotional, mental, or cognitive. So, hence, when Enfold came up to us with restorative practices, introduced us to it, it was just a natural process for us to get engaged and start to try out what exactly these practices were. So, to begin with, it all began with Dr. Sangeeta Saxena and her team meeting us and sharing the concept of restorative practices and explaining things to us and making it very clear to us as to how, if young minds are introduced to such practices, it would not just help them, but help the community in general as a whole in the long run. And we also believe that school is not just a place for academic learning, but also we need to equip students with skills and give them tools that would in turn make them a better person. The underlying principle and expectations from the RJ sessions, that is the restorative justice sessions, aligned perfectly with our ethos. It looked interesting, positive, doable, and we felt that the students would benefit as well as the facilitators would benefit if at all we roll this out to the entire school. So, after getting to know about restorative practices and its tools in detail, we planned and initiated the program. As usual, there were challenges with regard to fitting it in already within a packed schedule, which all the schools have, and the school heads and administrators present here would definitely agree with me on this. But where there is a will, there is a way. So the program started at Innisfree. So to introduce all of you to restorative justice circles, I would like Risha, a student of class 9, to speak about what an RJ circle is and her own experience of it. Over to you, Risha.
Thank you, ma'am. Restorative circles are not the same thing as the kind of normal circle type most of us are familiar with. RJ circles are a way to resolve interpersonal problems and restore balance and fairness in a calm and non judgmental manner. RJ circles are different from a simple circle time. Normal circle time is an activity done together as a class by students, for example, singing or story time. Restorative circles is not an activity, it is more like a casual conversation with our classmates and teachers. It is a place where we can speak freely and about our feelings to one another without thinking about getting judged. So, I'm just going to talk about my experience in the restorative justice circles. At first, my friends and I were skeptical about it, but gradually, after a few sessions of restorative circles, I came to realize that it is actually very helpful. We connected better as normal human beings and also as a class. I definitely understood that what stress I was feeling was also felt by my fellow classmates. To conclude, I would say that restorative justice circles was a very, very fun experience and definitely made our relationship in class stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Risha. As Risha said, our teachers also reported that some of the students found some things that were discussed during these circle times silly at first. Some showed interest, some took these things seriously, but by and large, it was like they were very casual about it initially. And some were also shy. They had to be coaxed to speak about their feelings or about to be participating in the circle. Whereas some took this opportunity to speak, and there were some who refused to speak, stating that because of the fear that they would be ridiculed later. But by and large, they were an excited lot. They were excited about the new class. However, it looked like there were some inhibitions when they spoke. They wouldn't open up. The facilitators or the circle keeper, as they are called, the facilitators are called circle keepers. So they felt that there were inhibitions. There was something that the students were holding back. Not everyone was active. And when this talking piece, that's what is the object that is called, which is passed around during the circle time. Half of the class would just pass it on, because these circles are like Mrs. Hopkins did say, very democratic in their approach. Nobody is forced to do anything. They had to be willing participants. So they were choosy about the questions that they had to answer. Not everybody was willing to listen to when somebody was speaking, and in between there used to be constant interference, when that would actually stop the speaker's flow of thought, and he or she would get perturbed. And speaking and listening during the circle time initially was not very comfortable, and the circle keepers also did feel that it was slightly difficult to sustain the interest of all the students for a period of time. And they also felt that, okay, there are certain things which were repetitive in nature. And children being children, students being students, they always felt that any time that is given to them should be spent uh, on the field, doing some physical activity, doing something that they all like. But this was something new for them. So they did take some time. But after a few classes, the children, some of them did find these things interesting. Whereas, as usual, like things do happen in certain cases, there were some who lost interest and asked for alternatives also. They did not want to speak after some time, and they felt that the time that was given for them to express themselves was too long. They could actually express in a little bit of time, and why spend so much of time? They wanted to play more. They wanted to be on the field rather than sit and engage in the circle. But slowly, as we started moving ahead with more classes, spending more time, the circle keepers did start feeling that, okay, the involvement of the students was getting better over a period of time. Gradually, the students did understand the importance of why we were trying to make them do something which they felt they would rather just give up and engage in more physical activities, go out and play. And that is when the class started getting connected, like how Arisha did share with all of you. So it was after some time that the students realized that yes, this is also something that is going to value add, and it's going to be helpful to them. That's how we progressed with these restorative justice circles. Now I would ask Samhita also to add on to her to whatever and share her experiences with all of you. Samhita, it's over to you now.
Thank you, ma'am. The restorative justice circles was where my classmates, my teachers, and I would sit around in a circle where everyone was equal and no one was judged. Everyone present in this circle had the right to speak out, make oneself heard, or even object if necessary. We kept things that were special to us in the middle, and as we spoke, we gave each other a sense of caringness. We built broken friendships by tearing guilt, pride, and rivalry. And most of all, it wasn't one of those made up fairy tales where everyone was happy. It was true, and that was what made it the best. We've had a number of fights among ourselves over the past few years, but never once did we think that looking at the situation from each other's angles could solve our problems. The restorative justice circles did not just give us free space to express ourselves, but we also learned many new skills, such as confidentiality and trust. We learn to speak from our heart, and we learn that happiness can be found even in the darkest of times. Thank you.
Thank you, Samhita. Now, as Samhita described, students slowly began to realize that their experiences are universal. It is not that it was only I felt something or he felt something. It was quite common as to what each of them was experiencing. They all had similar fears, feelings, and apprehensions. Restorative justice circles help them canalize the emotions and feelings towards confidence. There wasn't any huge difference in the behavior of the students towards their peers in some classes. Not that we did expect any miracles also, but it did lead to better understanding between students and teachers in some of the middle school classes. So now I would request Mihir and Siddharth also to tell you a little bit about how RJ circles impacted their school experiences. Mihir, over to you now.
Thank you, Mom. Good evening to all who are present here. Today, I'm going to share about my experiences during the circle sessions, which took place when I was in class 6, which was last year. So, the session started with us, including the teacher, sitting in a circle with talking pieces, which are the favorite items of students and a teacher. They were placed in the center. The teacher started with meditation, which made me feel calm and receive the circle time positively. She then asked us about our life experiences in the form of real life questions. The talking piece was then passed around the circle, either clockwise or anti clockwise, so that all get an equal chance to speak about what is dear to them. When I received the talking piece, the teacher made sure I expressed my thoughts completely. This made me feel fulfilled as I could tell whatever I wanted to tell without any interruption. Once I was asked to tell about an incident where I helped my friends. I felt happy to share it with my friends. Because of the circle time, I got to hear very interesting and funny anecdotes about my friends and my teacher. I never would have got to listen to these if not for the circle time. For example, few of my friends told about their helping others, and this changed my insight about them. It also helped me to connect with them in a better way. My teacher made sure that we all felt comfortable expressing our thoughts. I looked forward to the circle time every week as it made me feel free and unrestricted. I feel after this activity, I have learned to express my thoughts more freely to my friends and my teacher. I was very shy before the RJ circle session started, but now I am more expressive of my feelings. And as I said, it helped me to connect more with my friends and my family. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to tell about my thoughts and experiences on the RJ circle.
Siddharth?
So, hello everybody. I'm going to make my message short and simple. I'm going to take a page out of my dad's book, and that is, it is all about the quality, not the quantity. So, last year I joined IHS newly. Now, usually I am quite a social person, but due to the new school, I didn't really talk much, which is really unlike me. And full circles, well, they help me to interact with my classmates, be open and understand my classmates, and even face some very low moments. And I suppose that helped me become more comfortable around them. It has also helped me to reckon that I can be more open with my parents, which has tremendously helped to have candid conversations with them. And I've had a lot of fun moments in the circle. And it's kind of cool to interact with a teacher as a friend and not as a teacher or an instructor or someone who's telling you to do stuff. And those are my inputs and what I feel about the Info Circle.
As Mihir and Siddharth have expressed, restorative justice circles definitely have had a positive impact. But how do these sessions help us as a school? Uh, Restorative justice circles or restorative justice or practices doesn't give immediate results. Somewhere in future, a few may find the experiences shared helpful in regaining strength when in difficult situations. And this is something probably we'll be able to connect with what Mihir also has shared. A couple of other inputs. If these sessions that we had at Innisfree, if we could have minimized them, because we used to have once a fortnight, or in certain cases, in certain classes, it was once a week. So the other input here would be, as a school, probably if we could have this once a month and plan it in such a way so that these circles could help students express or bring out other emotions also, different emotions that they would be going through. It would be good. And how would this help? This definitely would, the feedback is this definitely would help the students to sustain their interest in the RJ process. And they might come up with concerns they feel they can put forth, they can easily put forth or freely put forth in the circles. So our suggestions and learnings were that one session per month would be productive. And it is not that we need to restrict these sessions and put it and have these sessions as planned as always, but take the help of these sessions and conduct these sessions whenever there is a need. Whenever there is a need that would be there, present itself by a way of a situation, then we need to have these circles. That definitely would be beneficial. We as educators, I think we need to learn to step back so students can conduct these sessions themselves, so as to remove ourselves from the center position that as facilitators and as teachers we generally take upon. So teachers just needs to be a silent spectator, or probably in certain cases a moderator. If we do it right, then RJ practices, it definitely is a powerful tool. So these are our learnings once we piloted this at Innisfree. So we thought this would be a better place for all of us to share, because we have an audience who will be able to connect with whatever we would be sharing. Thank you so much. And now it's over to Suman.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, we are committed as a school to using restorative justice approaches to help our student and teacher community build healthier relationships with one another, but most importantly, with themselves. We are convinced that the restorative justice approach, when used consistently and correctly, can not only give us a path to a gentler, more tolerant world, but can also empower students to face any challenges life throws their way with confidence, courage, and the resilience to bounce back from adversity. This year has shown us just how valuable those skills are. Thank you so much once again for giving us the opportunity to share our experience. Thank you, Dr. Saxena.
Thank you. Thank you, Suman, Aarti, and all the students for sharing all your experiences. This has been amazing. And I'm going to start with the questions that have poured in. The first question, in fact, we had almost 3 or 4 questions to do with intersectionality, and they're to Belinda. They are asking, saying that our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are greatly influenced by external entities as well, and keeping the intersectionalities under consideration. Where is the scope for this in the principles? That was one. And a related question was, how can RJ practices be implemented effectively when the group of students or even adults they come from a deeply diverse backgrounds and lines, and especially caste and regional cultures are different? And similarly, another attendee is asking that our country has a multitude of intersectionalities. How do we connect this to the principles mentioned by you? Belinda.
I think if we were all sitting together in a room, I would probably be wanting to ask the people who've posed that question what their thoughts are, not least because I don't have experience of your caste system, and it would be wrong of me to make suggestions about that. What I can say is that I've worked with schools who have very, very diverse communities, maybe many, many, many languages within that one community, and the restorative opportunities seem to create, I use the word opportunity again, for people from diverse cultures to come together and to listen to each other. But it would be interesting, I think, to hear from some of the questioners what they think the answer to their question would be. Because if I believe in my core belief number one, it's often the person with the question that, and fire as well, has within them the answer. So I would like to hear from some of you, please.
Yeah, Belinda, in fact, Nicole has shared her experience in the chat window, and that's really nice. So Nicole says that for disparities, they had a positive experience shared by girls in one of the village groups. And she said that the talking piece empowered her to speak and gave her a chance to speak where all had to listen. This was new for her, and she loved the experience. She came from a low caste family, and society has always told her that she can't speak in the presence of the higher class castes. But the circle gave her the space. Brown included, everyone in the circle is equal, right? So I understand. This is one of the ways that the circle empowers.
Yeah, great answer. I mean, a great answer, and that is a wonderful example of how this can really help. When I was a teacher, I used to run the class, the school that I was working in. It was a girls' school, a girls' comprehensive school in the nearest big city to me, or big town to me, which is called Reading. And because it was a girls only school, it was actually based in a very deprived area of Reading, in the south of Reading, where they had all the sort of markers, unemployment and social difficulties you can imagine. And that was, so there was white British girls coming from that area. So, quite a deprived area. But because it was a girls only school, it was also very popular with Muslim parents, and often quite aspirational Muslim parents. Girls came from all over the town to attend that school. So you had this potential racial divide. And there was also, not so many, but there were also black girls as well. And I was already, in those days, before I'd heard of restorative justice, I was already running circles. I could see the potential for circles to build bridges between students from these different, both class backgrounds as well as ethnic backgrounds. And they worked a treat. They really worked a treat. And I could see how this opportunity to take part. There's a question in the chat about circles, and I'm hoping that we will actually have a chance to talk about that as well, because there are different ways to use the word circle. But in the circles I ran, with games and activities and fun and laughter, this really became an opportunity for youngsters from all sorts of different backgrounds to get to know each other.
So we are running a little short on time, so I'll ask the questions that have been put in the chat, and this is to both Belinda and to Suman. What is the best approach to help teachers or school leadership to move away from punitive methods, especially when they believe that the status quo is working and effective? Is it to show the cost of the system, or is there a better way? And there is a similar question pertaining to boarding schools. Punishments given by senior students to others are quite common, as they are the fastest way to address indiscipline. So what would be the alternate to these specific issues, and what would it look like?
Okay, question one, what's the best way to demonstrate value? If I understand the question right, that's what you're saying. For me, and this is my point of view, something else might work for you. For me, it is just to take a chisel and, like a very patient sculptor. Just go tap, 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 tap for a long period of time until you chip away at chip away at the pushback. Just do what you believe to be right. You may not even be right. You may be surprised yourself. Chip away at it. Just focus on what you have to do. Don't try to prove something to somebody else. You might be, if you're convinced, then the outcome will follow from your actions. Doctor, what was the second question about?
Oh, so if there's a common way is to give punishments, but if
okay. I seem to recall that the question was about senior students being punitive towards juniors in certain kinds of settings because it's the fastest way to ensure adherence to norms. I would agree that it is the fastest way, but I would not agree that it is necessarily the best way or the most productive way. Fear, in my view, fear is not something that sticks. If I'm afraid of, I don't know, if I'm afraid of reptiles, and in order to get me used to that, you sit me in a corner and you throw lizards at me, it's not going to take away my fear. I will learn to sit still, but it's not going to take away my fear. So I don't believe that anything comes from fear because you're not thinking straight when you're in a state of fear. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that's my point of view.
Certainly useful. Belinda, would you like to come in on these?
I think on the first question, I have found over the years I've been doing this work that what works well for teachers is to show them how restorative practices like the listening, like the circles, like the conflict, addressing conflict, how that works for them as a leadership team and as a staff team. And once adults can see the value of those kinds of things for themselves, they're much, much more inclined to then think, actually, these things would be very, very good for students too. I think we made the mistake when I first started to do this 25 years ago, to start to make the case for these things as a behavior management tool. And then that met with resistance because staff were frightened of changing, even though no one has ever shown me research that shows how punishment is effective. As somebody said earlier on, it can actually be very detrimental to the life chances of a child. So starting like that, it tends to head the resistance off because people can see how it works for them. Also, by the way, if you start by looking at what are the values that teachers hold dear, what are the values that are important to them in a school, it soon becomes obvious to them that the punishment system does not link to the values in any way at all. It's actually going off in a different direction. So, but as my colleague who spoke earlier said, it is often a slow process, and it's fear of change. The student question, I answered in the chat, actually. It's a great question. What a fantastic opportunity to train our older young students to be restorative facilitators, to model the practice. It'll be good for their CVs. It'll be good for their life skills. And if they can use restorative chat and restorative responses when they've been given this responsibility to address low-level conflict amongst students, it would be a great way for the students to learn how to manage conflict, because the other way is very dangerous. If they see older students who they might respect, and adults, I have to say, modeling this power over, doing things to them, punishing them, what are they learning? They're learning that is the right way to resolve conflict. It's the right way to deal with things. And that means that they will become more violent, more inclined to use power over, and heaven help their children when they're parents. So we really need to change that mindset, and training older students to be the models in our school of good restorative practice is a fantastic thing to do, I think.
The further questions to you, Belinda. Do you see the restorative practices as an extension of narrative practices?
Well, I'm not necessarily sure what the questioner means there, because there's lots of different ways of understanding what narrative practices mean. But I mean, if we're talking about dialogue and storytelling, then that's what restorative practice does, yes. I'm noticing, by the way, can I just point out, I've noticed in the chat, we've is it Renetta who is talking about Reading Girls' School and her experience at the John Medeski Academy, and how wonderful that is, because maybe we met when she was there.
I'm really sorry to cut this short now, and there are several other questions, and maybe we can have a way that people can maybe reach out to you, Belinda, if they really need to. Maybe we could have that happen, or we could have the questions sent by mail.
Sure, whatever works for you. It's so exciting to be here. Thank you so much, and I'm loving hearing the stories of our colleagues who are working in school already, doing what you're doing. I had no idea that this was happening, and I could listen to you all day. And can I really say thank you to the students, because you spoke so clearly and so passionately about your experiences. And I always know that a school is really, really embedded restorative and relational practice when they're inviting the students to have the last word. So thank you so much. I was deeply, deeply touched and impressed by your input.
And on that note, I would like to release the report for life skills through restorative circles at Innisfree House School. That was in a collaborative effort of Enfold and Innisfree House School. So may I request Shivangi to put up the first page of that report, and may I ask Swagata to please post the link to this, this report is available on Enfold website, and the link is right here. Thank you, Swagata, for that.
Thank you so much, Belinda, Aarti, Suman, Dr. Saxena. This was so wonderful, and I'm sure everyone would just really wants to continue asking questions and hearing from you. Unfortunately, we have a time restraint, but of course we will be finding more ways to continue these conversations. And it is so wonderful to see all of this lovely sharing, and the instances being shared, and the reflective questions being asked. Without much ado, I did already speak a little bit about how today we will be the other aspect of restorative processes in India that we will be looking at would be the implementation of restorative processes in the context of the juvenile justice system, working with children who are within the justice system. That could be children alleged or found to be in conflict with law, and children in need of care and protection. So 3 organizations are going to be presenting their work in this field today. One is Council to Secure Justice. The second is Enfold Proactive Health Trust. And the third is Ashiana Foundation, based in Mumbai. All of these organizations are based in different cities. First of all, may I call upon Aarti Mohan, who is the program officer with the Restorative Justice team of Council to Secure Justice. Aarti is a lawyer from Nalsar and has an MSc in Restorative Practices from International Institute of Restorative Practices. For the past 7 years, Aarti has trained in different restorative models and tools, including from Belinda herself. As Belinda had mentioned, Aarti has worked on designing and holding restorative spaces for children in conflict with law and children in need of care and protection with CSJ since 2017. Aarti, over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Nimisha. Good evening, everyone.
Evening, everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about CSJ circle work, particularly with children in conflict with law. So we've already heard very beautifully about what circles are and what circle processes look like. And the processes we do are very similar. It's a space for dialogue, a space for connection, or one person speaks at a time. The idea that's been core to us is to create a space that's safe, that's non-judgmental, and that creates a space for belonging. So we've done circles in a wide variety of childcare institutions. We worked in observation homes as well as in shelter homes. Since COVID started, we've also been doing virtual circles. So in Rajasthan, we partnered with UNICEF and Department of Child Rights, and we trained a pool of 6 master trainers to conduct circles across 6 observation homes. So today I'm going to be talking about our findings from that project, as well as we're going to release the study of that particular project. Overall, we did 75 in-person circles as well as 2 virtual circles. So for the most part, the design of our circles has been that we go in and we do 1 circle per week. Participation in our circles is completely optional, which means that at times we may have lesser children and at times we may have more. A child who comes to 1 circle may choose whether they want to come back or not. So we've had circles with as less as 5 children and as many as 15 children. The duration of the circle also varies, so that depends on what we are talking about. We've had circles as short as 15 minutes and as long as 2.5 hours. Usually we have 2 adult facilitators who hold the circle process, and at times we've also taken the children's help to co-facilitate with us. Our circle model is a variety of theoretical and tool-based frameworks. We have drawn a lot from restorative
Aarti, could you switch
from
off
Belinda's
your
book and the
camera
principles
perhaps,
Belinda's
because your voice is breaking a bit. I think it might be better.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it better now, Anusha?
It's better, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so we've done our circle model has been designed based on a wide variety of theoretical frameworks and tool-based frameworks as well. Apart from the restorative tools we learn from child and adolescent brain development studies. For example, we learned that children might not always be the most comfortable with verbal communication. So into our circles, we've also brought in alternative forms of communication, such as drawing or telling their stories through storyboarding, something I learned from Belinda. We've also been very cognizant of the fact that a lot of children who come in contact with the juvenile justice system have often experienced trauma. So it becomes important for us to ensure that we do not replicate that trauma and our circles are trauma informed. A practical way we do this is by ensuring that there is choice at every stage of the process. We also bring in stabilization tools. So when we talk about something that's heavy during the circle process, something that good, we back it up with something like a stabilization tool or a grounding exercise. It helps that they can practice once they go back. We've also drawn from social emotional learning and how social emotional learning is an indicator of success. All of our circles have been based on different experiential. We realize that children learn the best when they actually do those activities. So all of the social emotional learning activities were experiential in all our circles. We also took care to ensure that our program was culturally responsive and all of our circles were responsive to a specific group of children we were working with. Before we do a circle, we usually create a detailed circle plan based on the specific theme. The circle has distinct stages for us, with each stage serving a unique purpose. We start with some sort of opening or transition activity. When we were working with younger boys, we saw that they wanted to do something that involved physical movement. So we started doing physical activities as energizers to open the circle, and we would couple that with a focusing exercise. Apart from that, we also have a specific theme for each circle. So the sharing questions are usually related to that. Before we go into deeper sharing, we do some fun questions, such as, if you had a superpower, what would that be? These are questions just to help children ease into the process and feel more comfortable. After that, we go on to talk about the specific theme. For example, if we are talking about worry on any particular day, then we are going to talk about perhaps a time we felt worried. How did it feel in the body? And we make these storytelling prompts so that everyone can go around and talk about it. We do emphasize repeatedly that sharing is completely optional in the circle. One element we found very helpful is the talking piece.
something that's already been spoken about. In our circles, we saw that it helped equalize the space, not only amongst the different children, but also between the children and the adult facilitators. Everyone knew that the talking piece would come to them, and when they would be speaking, whatever they said would be honored and respected. Another element of the circle we found very helpful was creating guidelines. Guidelines are co-created norms about behavioral expectations, things we want to hold ourselves and others accountable to. Initially, we found it difficult to explain this concept because we did not want to equate it with rules. Gradually, the question that worked the most for us was talking about what would make the space safe for you. And children did start speaking about things that would help them to feel safe. There were things like not using hurtful language. One child said that he feels hurt when others maintain eye contact with him. And then that became a guideline which everyone agreed to. So guidelines are things which all of the children would agree to. And whenever there was a deviation, one of the children themselves would bring back the attention to that guideline. So this became a very powerful tool for it being a co-created space, which was not hierarchical in any way. So now to talk a little bit about the findings and the impact of the circles we did, particularly from Rajasthan. If my internet is fine, can I turn my video back on, Mishra?
Yes, I think you can now. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So immediately after the circle, a lot of children spoke about how they would feel happy. At the minimum, the circle process was a positive distraction. For a lot of children who are in childcare institutions, often they don't have space for meaningful engagement. So a lot of them said that this was a positive distraction. More than that, a lot of them said that we would feel happy, safe, relaxed after being in circle. Some said that whenever I'm sad and I come to circle, I feel better afterwards. Apart from this, we also saw a lot of long-term impact. Belinda spoke about the need for emotional literacy, and our circles were designed around social emotional learning themes. So we saw the importance of understanding one's own emotions and managing them. So we created a wide variety of tools which would help children identify their emotions. We used a lot of pictorial tools and scales. And initially, children would speak in terms of binaries when it came to emotions, good or bad. But over a period of time, we saw that a lot of them could identify distinct emotions, and they could speak about multiple emotions existing at the same time as well. And why this is important is because when we are able to understand our emotions, then we can also learn how to manage them effectively without hurting someone else. So we practiced a lot of coping tools within our circles. All of this was experiential, and we took care to ensure that the coping tools were child appropriate. So we would use analogies or storytelling or pictorial tools. For example, when we were practicing a tool with anger, we spoke about how a tortoise, when it's distressed, it retreats into its shell. And similarly, when we are angry, we can take a moment to just pause before saying something to someone else that may hurt them. So children spoke about how they started using these coping tools with each other, and they also started recommending these coping tools to each other, even outside the circle. We also saw the circles were a safe space. Children could speak about things which they probably may not have been able to. Certain conversations, such as around mental health, wrongdoing, or sexuality, are often discouraged, but the circles created a safe space for children to talk about this. Some of them spoke about behaviors that may not be seen as socially acceptable, such as relationships with their romantic partners. They knew that when they would share, they would not be shamed, and there were also guidelines in place to ensure that safety. Some of them also spoke about the acts of wrongdoing. These are children in conflict with law who for the first time could talk about what they had done. They knew that when they would share, there would be compassion and they would not be shamed, and also the process was confidential. So we saw that compassion was the first step towards accountability, and we saw acknowledgement as a part of accountability. Some children spoke about their experiences of vulnerability, which in a childcare institution can be very hard to do because they might be perceived as weak and might be bullied afterwards. But children did speak about their experiences of being harmed. One child spoke about how he had been sexually harmed before he came to the institution. Another spoke about suicidal thoughts he'd had. So the circle supported them and offered them warmth. And in these cases, the facilitators also checked in with them afterwards to ensure that they received the adequate support. But we did see that a lot of conversations that could not happen otherwise did happen in circle. We also practiced consent in our circles. We thought of consent as something that is not just related to sex, but something that can be practiced. And we saw that circles were a beautiful space to build up agency and autonomy. Every part of the circle, we asked children whether they wanted to participate, what the level of engagement was. They also started co-creating the space with us by telling us what they'd like to do, what theme of circle they'd like to have. And a child said that being asked what they wanted was really important. They said that I started thinking that I too am important. I am special because no one had asked me what I needed before that. And we saw that this really helped children feel that they had control and they had agency. Apart from that, we also explicitly spoke about sexual consent. So there was this round where a child was speaking about how he believed that if he was in a relationship with someone, the girl could not refuse to have a physical relationship with him. And the talking piece went around the circle, and then this other boy says that, but I think differently. I think she may feel bad, and I think she always has the right to say no. And I think that is the beauty of a circle process, that we can share our opinions we are socialized to believe in. They might be harmful, they might hurt others, but we are not shamed for those. And someone else can share their opinion, and we are open to our views evolving within the circle process because it's a safe space. And we saw a lot of that happening in circle where socialized viewpoints started evolving. We spoke about bullying and teasing with children who were bullying others being part of the circle. So others saw them in a new light. It was a space for everyone to see what it feels like to be on the other side, for the bully to see what it feels like for the bullied child to be. So one child said that after that said that it may be fun to tease others, but I think it's difficult for the person who is teased. So we had a lot of such discussion where people could place themselves in the other's shoes and see what it might feel like to be harmed. So we had similar discussions about oppression, patriarchy, and gender as well. Something else we saw in our circles was that building a healthy identity. Of course, there was a lot of self-confidence that was built up during the circles because they had space to talk about whatever they felt like talking about, and they would not be chastised for it. We also explicitly focused on building self-esteem. Being in a childcare institution can really limit one's identity because they're often called just by the name of the offense they've come in for. However, we focused on other aspects of their identity, such as their strengths, times they had helped others. A lot of children had a lot of difficulty even thinking about this, but gradually we saw that this was something that really helped them, and they started thinking about the future. They started thinking about their strengths and how they could build on those strengths. One child said that in circle, I realized that even I can be respected. And finally, the last thing that has been very powerful for us is about addressing matters of patriarchy, oppression, and discrimination. We did a lot of storytelling rounds on this about how everyone's experiences were with being discriminated or having witnessed such an incident and what it felt like for them. A lot of others spoke about their role in perpetuating that. And eventually we could also talk about what we could do to break that cycle. One child said that after the discussion said that we all have the same colored blood. Initially, we spoke about gender stereotypes and we spoke about toxic masculinity. And one child said that I'm not supposed to cry because I'm a boy. And after that, everyone spoke about how the toxic masculinity impacted them and what they could do to break out of that and how it was okay for them to feel emotions as well. We also spoke about gender, patriarchy, gender stereotypes. For all of this, we used a lot of creative tools, storytelling, which really helped children to talk about these things. So this is a brief sharing trauma study which we are releasing today. The study is called Bonds of Hope, and it is about our UNICEF project. We will be sharing the link to the study in our chat, as well as it will be up on our website. And I think that's it. And with that, I come to the end of my talk. So Namisha, it's over to you.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Aarti, for that wonderful presentation. I would just like to mention that any questions that all of the attendees might have, please, you can put them in the Q&A panel or you can put them in chat, and we will be having an open house round of discussion at the end of, after all the organizations have presented. Next up, we have Shivangi Puri, who is a social worker and facilitator with Enfold Proactive Health Trust. Shivangi has completed her MA in social work, specializing in criminology and justice from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. For the past year, she has been a part of the team at Enfold that works using restorative practices within the juvenile justice system. The work involves her engaging with both children in need of care and protection and children alleged to be in conflict with law in childcare institutions. Shivangi?
Thank you, Nimisha. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the introduction and also for the opportunity to speak about what has been our experience with restorative practices in the times of COVID. And I was just thinking about how similar CSJ's and Enfold's work is, and how our values really align with each other. And with that, I'll just begin. So just as, and I know a lot of us in the audience as well as talking about, the other panelists have also spoken about what circles are and what restorative circles are, but just to reiterate that it's a way of bringing people together where they feel respected, heard, and each person has the opportunity to talk. And I think the talking piece has been mentioned. So where each person can speak and each person is welcome and they have the option to stay or to leave. So that's the basic foundation of restorative circles. And there's a huge alignment of restorative circles with the principles of juvenile justice, as we see in the section 3 of the Juvenile Justice Act. We see that there are several principles that give us a good framework while we work with children. So I personally have felt that restorative circles have been an important tool to enable participation. And often we look at participation, say if we were to have how a children's home were to run, and we would often think of say have one child representative or two children representatives, but circles would actually give an opportunity for each person to speak and each person's voice to be heard, and not just a part of the voice to be heard. So I personally feel that that's really where the heart of it lies, as well as looking at other values, confidentiality. And as circle keepers, we try and uphold the dignity and worth of all individuals, as well as the fact that it's a non-judgmental space, and the person and every person walking into the circle is welcome, and what they did is not what they're reduced to. So say if a child in conflict with law, or alleged to be in conflict with law, were to walk into a circle, it wouldn't entirely be about what they did, but who they are as well. So like coming from a strengths-based approach and developing that what are the things you're good at, what are the things that you can constructively engage in, as well as emotional and physical safety, of course. So we while the pandemic, before the pandemic, we were working in person and doing weekly circles with the children, bi-weekly circles with the staff, and after that we sort of reworked whatever was happening, and this is what we've been able to do during the pandemic. We've done a 22 session life skills course with children who've been released from the observation home. So when children got released from the observation home, our team started following up with a few children. And then we provided immediate support like ration, health needs, or providing information about social protection schemes. But eventually we realized that there was a need to engage them in a constructive manner. So we came up with a 22 session life skills program, which was a session-based program with a few restorative elements. But at that time, we were sort of wondering how to do circles online and how it would look like. So we've also been simultaneously doing circles with children in conflict with the law, children alleged to be in conflict with the law in a government observation home, and children in need of care and protection in an NGO-run children's home. So we've been working with both boys and girls directly. Once a week, we sit with a group of anywhere to 5 to 15, as Aarti mentioned, children. And we've also realized very quickly that just by working with the children and, like the idea, if it is to create a safe space where everybody feels heard, respected, and safe, would easily, would really require our intervention or working with the staff as well, because they build the culture, they they are the backbone of that space. So we did a workshop with staff of childcare institutions from different states across India. So just a little bit of backdrop of the course. That was the 22-session course with children alleged to be in conflict with the law. It's called Nanu Samartha, which in Kannada means I am capable. There was buy-in from different stakeholders, and it enabled a good convergence between the government, judiciary, UNICEF, civil society, as well as children and families. So we started one pilot program, and I think the distinct, like something that was new and challenging for us was that all of these children were out in communities and they were back home and they were readjusting to their circumstances. So we reached out to 31 youth, while 16 of them attended one session. Around 12 of them were able to complete 50% or more of the course, and 10 of them completed the entire course. So that was sort of met by that. And most reasons as to why children could not attend was because of the lack of access to smartphones, and sometimes they were working or there was a lack of interest. And we were also able to break geographical barriers in terms of not just restricting to Bangalore, but looking at different places, because we took referrals from different JJBs across Karnataka and in different states. So just to give you a sense of, what were the responses of children, their parents, and different stakeholders, I'm going to read out two, which I feel explain a little bit about the program. One child's mother actually said that, she saw a few changes in them, in him. He has begun to listen to me and show signs of being more understanding. During the course of the program, he was very curious, participated sincerely, and even discussed some aspects of the program with me. One of the JJB members from Bangalore also mentioned how, sometimes the justice system may let you down, but programs like these restore faith in our system, and they can cause a ripple effect and bring about the needed change. So moving on to the restorative circles in childcare institutions, and that are in two spaces that we do virtually. And of course, we often wondered how we would do it with just two devices, and but we just had to try different ways of doing it. And we started off with doing community building, where everybody shares how they are feeling, what they're doing, their likes, dislikes, and very much like Aarti mentioned, co-creation of values, where we ask them what helps them feel safe in that space, and what is it that they require to be able to build this space together. So it's not just me as a circle keeper or my colleagues as circle keepers going in and telling children that, okay, this is how we are going to behave, this is how you have to do things. It's about bringing everybody together space so that we can feel safe, so that we can speak openly. And different values come up from children, and they've been from a range of feeling like wanting everybody to listen to them well, or that they wanted trust in the circle, etc. So one experience that I wanted to share was we did a session with children in the observation home, and we spoke about self-love. And one of the children actually said, at the end of the session, he's like, Didi, I don't think anybody has ever asked me these questions. He's like, I've never thought about self-love in a way. And a lot of the children had a hard time understanding what the concept of loving oneself was. So I thought that was really interesting and needed more exploration. We've also spoken about gender, what are the different gender messages that we get, what are the different thoughts that we have, and hope to explore it more. And we've also spoken about exploring emotions, and what are recognizing emotions, regulating emotions, understanding them, and expressing them in a way that are different. So and that's been the general sort of conversations and circles we've had. I think that three powerful responses from children. and I just wanted to share them. And I think it really goes to show what a circle can create for children in terms of being able to create safe spaces. One of the children said that there's nothing I cannot do. So I think that really points towards her sense of self-esteem, and how that has grown, and that there's nothing I cannot do. The second that I feel was really interesting was I want to encourage other people who are feeling down. So, I mean, this of course points to a sense of empathy and how that has built up in them. And they're like, hey, I see one of my friends is not feeling well. So what am I going to do? And the third one was that I should not tease others. And this comes from a place of self-reflection, and to say, okay, I see that I'm teasing other people, and I can understand what, I can hear them in a circle and understand how it's impacting me, how it's impacting them. And maybe I should change my behavior. So like that's 3 levels of thinking. And I think that that's fabulous for young people to be able to reach that level of self-reflection. Moving on to the workshop that we did with staff, we did, it was across 5 states. It was spread over 7 weeks, and it was all done virtually. And so we for me, interestingly, I felt it was a really interesting experience to be a part of this, to be able to even enable or enhance my understanding of what challenges government staff and staff of private and childcare institutions face, how they have been able to do this. And I remember one superintendent who used to come, and she had a total of around 50-60 children in her home, and she had only 1 other staff. So, but she would still come every week, twice a week, spend 2.5 hours with us. And I think that was, she saw value in that. And on the right, like we tried to create a virtual center and values. I just wanted to share with everybody. I'm not going to take up more time, but I just wanted to read out one more feedback that one of the staff had from the training that they underwent. सर्कल प्रोसेस के प्रशिक्षण के माध्यम से मुझे बाल देखरेख संस्था में बालकों को विभिन्न जीवन कौशल सीखने में मदद मिलेगी, and even about community building. So the person who wrote this felt that it could be used in childcare institutions and in their context. So in Madhya Pradesh, we trained a bunch of resource persons and staff in Madhya Pradesh, and they're looking forward to take this forward within the institutions they work in. And we're glad to be able to sort of start that process and see how it goes. I just really like this picture. There's no specific reason why it's here, but it's sort of a symbol to just demonstrate that, we're all interconnected, and, just that we're all on a journey to collective healing. And thank you so much for listening. And I would just really like to thank my entire team, Aleen, Swagatani, Mala, Preeti, because I think, I just happen to be presenting, but we've all done this together. So, over to you, Nimisha.
Thank you so much, Shivangi. What a beautiful, lovely presentation, and so beautiful to see these responses from staff, from children, and especially the one when you said that the child never thought about self-love, and I think even CSJ's experiences, and there's so much resonance, as you said, between CSJ and Fold, and I think also Ashiana's work, that these children have never been told that they themselves need to think about self-love and value themselves. So thank you so much for that beautiful sharing. Next up, we have someone who I think has been working on restorative processes for a really long time, and for me personally was the person who introduced me to restorative processes through a beautiful workshop that she organized. Sachi Maniar, the founder of Ashiana Foundation in Mumbai. Sachi founded Ashiana in 2012 to create safe, transformative spaces in childcare institutions in Mumbai, Her journey to build peace began as a student and continued through her filmmaking career and her equally committed volunteer work. At Yashiana, by building transformational spaces and positive relationships, Sachi and her team enabled children and young people to reclaim their inner strength, change their behavior patterns, become self reliant, and disrupt the cycle of poverty and violence. Sachi was introduced to restorative justice and restorative approaches in 2015 and has been holding circles with children ever since. In 2017, she took a trip to the US to deep dive into restorative practices and restorative justice. Sachi today also brings to us some children who have experienced the juvenile justice system, and they will be sharing their experiences of restorative processes and how they have impacted them with us. Sachi, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for one is organizing this, Nimisha, Swagata, and Fold CSJ, and Arpan, and putting this whole week together, actually, which has been really amazing. I feel like everybody's already spoken about what restorative justice is, what restorative processes are. So I'm just going to share a little bit about our take on this from like my understanding of what restorative processes are and how we have kind of implemented this in the childcare institutions. And then instead of me speaking, I prefer that the boys are here, one of our girls is here, and they speak about their experience of circles. So just to share, for me, restorative processes has always been about restoring something, right? And we're all talking about there is this core self, there is this pure self in us, which is there when we are born. And then the idea is that as we grow up and, face life experiences, it just starts getting either covered or damaged or broken or whatever one may want to call it. And for me, circles is a way to restore that, restore the trust, restore the belief in self, restore the confidence, restore the basic values of empathy, compassion, forgiveness that we all have in our core self. And knowing very well that circle process is a relational journey, the basis and the foundation of Ashiana circle work has been relationships, and building these relationships in a way that are life affirming. So I was reading this amazing book where they were talking about how language, English language or Hindi language or any language for that matter, which is a modern language, is itself very punitive or labeling. Like, so we always say, oh, this person is lazy, or this person is why are you being so lazy? But we are changing every moment, and so often the language does not remain restorative at all. And so a lot of our focus has been about what is the language that we need to use with the children, so that it is a life affirming conversation rather than a punitive or a labeling conversation. And then one other kind of central theme of the way we work, or the approach that we have, is to pay attention to what grows. So we all have the good and the bad in us, and so what am I paying attention to so that it grows? So I'm paying attention to the good in each child or each individual, each adult, so that we can amplify that good and create a positive field in many ways. So I think with that, I will let the children speak and maybe come back to sharing a little bit about our circle process work with pictures. First up, I want to invite Bichitra. All three children will be sharing in Hindi, and I will probably try to share the key points in English at some point. Vichitra is one of my, I would say, oldest boys. I've known him since 2016. Just to see him today, he works in an event management company. He used to work in an event management company. Before that, he was working in a bakery, and also is the amazing designer of these beautiful craft products. And is starting his own small business, which I'm very proud of. So I will now invite Bichitra. Bichitra, अपना video on कर दीजिए. Great. तो thank you first of all agree करने के लिए, यहाँ पे बात करने के लिए. और विचित्रा, हम सब जानना चाहते हैं कि आपका सर्कल एक्सपीरियंस आपका जर्नी सर्कल्स के साथ कैसा था और आपने क्या सीखा सर्कल्स में से?
ओके, थैंक यू सो मच मुझे यहाँ पे अपॉर्चुनिटी देने के लिए और अपना एक्सपीरियंस बताने के लिए। 2016 में मैं डोंगरी चिल्ड्रन होम पे साची दीदी को मिला था, जो वो बच्चों को लेकर एक सर्कल बना के बैठते थे और वैसे मैं कभी उनके पास नहीं जाता था, कभी सर्कल में नहीं बैठता था क्योंकि वैसे दीदी एक एनजीओ चलाती है और एनजीओ के साथ मेरा बहुत बुरा एक्सपीरियंस था और जो दीदी भैया होते थे, मैं किसी पे ट्रस्ट नहीं करता था। और फिर मैं ऐसे डोंगरी से बाहर आने के बाद एक दिन दीदी जूहू बीच पे सर्कल कर रहे थे और मैं उनसे मिला और उस सर्कल में बैठा था, तो बहुत सारे नए लोग थे और 2-3 वॉलंटियर्स थे, जो उस वक़्त मुझे कम्युनिकेशन करना नहीं आता था, किसी से बात करना नहीं आता था, क्या बात करना है, कैसे बात करना है। और मैं जब भी सर्कल वहाँ पे बैठा था, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा और काफ़ी मज़ा आया। तो ऐसे मैं धीरे-धीरे सर्कल में बैठता रहा और मुझे धीरे-धीरे मैंने बात करना सीखा और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा, बहुत पसंद है सर्कल क्योंकि सर्कल मुझे बहुत पसंद है क्योंकि वहाँ पे कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई लीड नहीं करता है। हम सारे मिलकर टॉपिक डिसाइड करते हैं और उस टॉपिक में हम बात करते हैं लाइक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, हेल्दी रिलेशनशिप, एंगर, जॉब जॉब प्रॉब्लम्स और लाइफ कैसे लाइफ फ्यूचर प्लान। तो ये सारे टॉपिक पे हम बात करते हैं और सब लोग अपना-अपना प्रॉब्लम्स शेयर करते हैं। तो हमारे भी कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं, जैसे दूसरों को सुन के हमारी प्रॉब्लम्स की सॉल्यूशन मिल जाती है और सर्कल सर्कल मेरे लिए बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है क्योंकि वहाँ पे काफ़ी कुछ चीज़ें सीखने मिलता है। जैसे दूसरों को सुनना और दूसरों पे ट्रस्ट करना और मतलब वहाँ पे एक इंस्पायर होता हूँ मैं वहाँ से और एक पॉजिटिव एनर्जी मिलता है, कॉन्फिडेंस मिलता है। सो पहले जैसे हमें बात नहीं करना मतलब किसी से बात करना नहीं आता था और अभी कुछ हेलो, सुनाई दे रहा है ना?
यस।
पहले किसी से बात करने नहीं आता था जब हम आए थे और अभी तो अभी-अभी हम खुद से कुछ डिसाइड करना जैसे डॉक्यूमेंट्स करना हमारे लिए, कोई जॉब्स ढूँढना खुद से और लाइक ऐसे बहुत काफ़ी कुछ चीज़ें मैं अभी कर पाता हूँ और अ, तो एक अचानक कॉन्फिडेंस मतलब अचानक से जब से मैं जुड़ा हूँ जैसे होता है ना कदम से कदम मिलाकर ऐसे साथ में एकदम मुझे फुल सपोर्ट किया है सर्कल में बैठ के जैसे मेरे जैसे लोग जो संस्था में रहते हैं लाइक मेरे जैसे लोग जो संस्था में रहते हैं बचपन से और ऐसे बाहर आने के बाद ना कोई फैमिली सपोर्ट होता है, कुछ ऐसे नहीं होता है तो हम लोग कैसे अ, हम ऐसे मतलब डिप्रेशन में जाते हैं, डीमोटिवेटेड होते हैं, तो ये सर्कल करके बहुत अच्छा लगता है और बहुत फ़ायदा होता है कि जैसे हमें मोटिवेट मिलता है और हमारी मतलब एक रिमाइंडेड करता है कि तुम्हें ऐसे ये करना है, आपको लाइफ़ एकदम अच्छी बनानी है, तो एक सपोर्ट करती है, तो फिर मैं फिर से मेरे ट्रैक में आ जाता हूँ, जैसे हाँ, मुझे कुछ करना है आगे और मैं बीच में डिस्टर्ब हो जाता हूँ और तो ऐसे और जैसे दूसरों से मतलब रिस्पेक्ट तो मतलब मुझे पता ही नहीं था कि दूसरों से कैसे बात करना है। बिल्कुल मुझे हिंदी लैंग्वेज मतलब ऐसे आती ही नहीं थी। तो अभी बहुत अच्छा मैं लोगों से बात करता हूँ, दूसरों को रिस्पेक्ट करता हूँ और एनकरेज करता हूँ और सर्कल में बैठकर मुझे एक अच्छा लगता है लोगों को मिलके एकदम सब लोगों पे ट्रस्ट करके मैं अपना जो बातें होती है मैं एकदम बिल्कुल ओपनली शेयर कर पाता हूँ। और एक मुझे एक सर्कल में बैठ के एक मुझे आसियाना और उस वहाँ पे जो बच्चे हैं आसियाना टीम को लेकर मुझे एक फैमिली लगता है और मैं जब भी वहाँ पे जाता हूँ मैं बहुत हैप्पी फील करता हूँ।
Thank you, Vichitra.
Okay, thank you so much everyone.
Okay, thank you, Vichitra. आई थिंक एक तो मैं इंग्लिश में बोलूंगी विचित्र, जो तुमने थोड़ा बोला उसको मैं संक्षेप में इंग्लिश में बोल रही हूँ ताकि जो नहीं समझ सकते हिंदी उनको इजी हो, ठीक है? सो विचित्र, आई हैव नोन विचित्र सिंस 2016 and known him to be somebody who never attended my circles in the observation home and the children's home, and so he would watch from outside but never come and sit with us. Sometimes I would pull him and he'd be like, "Nahi Didi, I don't want to do this," and it would be over with that conversation. But I think the day he came out, he came for the first circle at the Jew Beach, and there he met people. He understood what the circle is. He experienced a circle and then has never looked back. Of course, he shared that the circle gave him a lot of confidence. It helps him think of solutions. That he's attended circles, and what he likes about it is that they together, all the children, decide different topics that they are struggling with, whether it's anger or healthy relationships, and then they decide the topic while we do the circle. Sometimes children also pose their own questions in the circle, and while listening to each other's stories, their problems get solved. He also spoke about how circle helps him be on track and inspire, and gives him positive energy, and makes him keep looking towards the future. I guess with that, I will call my next speaker, who's sitting right next to me. His name is Rizwan. I have known Rizwan since 2012. मैं 2012 से Rizwan को जानती हूँ, and he was this little, and then now he's grown and is this young man. Rizwan worked in the hotel industry during the COVID period, and I've known him to be really hardworking and diligent, and he loves circle. He's the one who's always like, when is the next circle happening? So I'll hand it over to Rizwan and let him share his experience.
Hi, namaste. आप लोग का शुक्रिया कि आप लोग ने मुझे बोलने का मौका दिया, तो मैं हिंदी में ही बोल सकता हूँ। तो मैं सर्कल में मतलब मैं तब से तो नहीं था, मैं माटुंगा हॉस्टल में कुछ हमारा फार्मिंग कोर्स करके चालू हुआ था, ग्रीन फ्रेंड्स करके, तो मैं वहाँ से जब ज्वाइन हुआ सर्कल के लिए, तो मीन्स लाइक कि फार्मिंग होने के बाद जब हमारा सर्कल होता था तो हमेशा एक ना एक सवाल आता था कि हमारे पास क्या सीखे, क्या नहीं सीखे, क्या करते हो तुम लोग झाड़ों के साथ। तो वो सब में हम लोग का माइंड मतलब मेरा माइंड इतना ही हो गया था कि मैंने फार्मिंग का कोर्स भी किया है कुछ 1 साल का उसको लेके, और सर्कल में बैठने पे मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि मुझे नहीं, सर्कल मुझे चाहिए। मैंने शायद ही कोई सर्कल में मैं नहीं अटेंड हुआ रहूँगा, किसी अगर कुछ रीज़न रहता है तो, नहीं तो मैं हर सर्कल में आता ही हूँ। तो सर्कल एक्सपीरियंस मेरा ये है कि मुझे जो सामने वाले बात करते हैं उनसे मुझे क्या सीखने मिलता है, मैं सिर्फ़ वो देखता हूँ कि मैं उनसे क्या मुझे मिल रहा है। वो जो सामने से बात कर रहे हैं उनसे मैं क्या ले सकता हूँ और उससे मेरे लाइफ़ में मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ। आई नो कि मतलब मैं जब हॉस्टल से आया था तो मुंबई मेरे लिए ऐसा था कि बाहर की दुनिया, क्योंकि बाहर की दुनिया मैंने बचपन से कभी देखी नहीं थी। तो बड़े लोगों से कैसे बात करना है, कैसे रहना है उनके साथ, तो कुछ आइडिया ही नहीं था हमारे पास कि क्या करना है। तो फिर 2016 से मैं सर्कल में बैठ-बैठ के थोड़ा बहुत अंदर सीखा था, लेकिन बाहर आने के बाद कुछ मैनर्स नहीं था हमारे पास। मतलब मेरे पास कुछ उतना मैनर्स नहीं था कि लोगों से कैसे बात करना है, कैसे मिलना है, तो वो हमारे पास था नहीं। क्योंकि हम लोग हॉस्टल में अपने भाषा में बात करते थे, मतलब जैसे हम आए थे अंदर उसी भाषा में। तो अभी ऐसा है कि अभी मैं ये बोल सकता हूँ कि हाँ, मैं रेडी हूँ। किसी भी चीज़ के लिए मैं रेडी हूँ। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इसलिए कि मैंने इतना कुछ सीखा है सर्कल से सर्कल मुझे एक्चुअली बहुत ही पसंद है अभी के समय पे। पहले बिल्कुल नहीं पसंद था, बहुत बोर होता था मैं। अभी इतना पसंद है कि मैं मिस नहीं कर सकता। मैंने मेरे लाइफ में सर्कल से आज मैं जो कुछ भी हूँ इंस्पायर होके हुआ हूँ, लोगों से, लोगों की बातों से, जिनसे मैं मिला हूँ आज तक सर्कल में। आई नो कि मैं जब बच्चे लोग से मिलता हूँ तो मुझे वो पता चलता है कि हाँ, जो मेरे जैसे उनके साथ क्या हो रहा है, क्या नहीं हो रहा है, तो वो मुझे जानने के लिए मिलता है। और मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, वो मैं मेरी लाइफ से उनको बता सकता हूँ कि मेरे साथ पिछले इन दिनों में क्या हुआ, नहीं हुआ। क्योंकि हर बार ऐसा होता है कि मतलब सर्कल में कोई भी मतलब कौन-सा भी सवाल पूछ लेता है, तो कभी-कभी डिफ़िकल्ट हो जाता है हमारे लिए कि अभी इस सवाल का मेरे पास कोई जवाब है, नहीं है। तो दिमाग पे हमारे जोड़ पड़ता है कि हाँ, इसके ऊपर से क्या सवाल है मेरे पास। तो वो सोचते-सोचते अभी ऐसा हो गया है कि नहीं, हाँ, मैं तैयार हूँ, क्या मैं बाहर की लाइफ़ में रह सकता हूँ, खुद से कुछ कर सकता हूँ, इस चीज़ के लिए तैयार हो चुका हूँ। वो भी आशियाना के फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल सर्कल के वजह से और उनकी जो प्यार मिले हम लोग को उन सब चीज़ों से। और और एक एक्सपीरियंस है मेरा, मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा है। हाँ, पहले ना सर्कल में बैठने बोलो ना तो मतलब आँख ऐसे बंद नहीं होता था। मतलब आँख बंद करने बोलेंगे तो नहीं दीदी मुझसे नहीं हो रहा, मैं नहीं बैठ रहा, मैं उठ के चला जाता था। और अभी ऐसा हो गया कि नहीं, सर्कल में हमारे कुछ ऐसे वैल्यूज़ होते हैं जो मैं मेरे रोज़ के लाइफ में यूज़ करता हूँ। जैसे कि अपने से जो बड़े हैं उनको इज़्ज़त करना, किसी से बात नहीं करना और किसी को नीचा नहीं दिखाना। मैं 3-4 वैल्यू है जो मैं फ़ॉलो करता हूँ मेरे रोज़ के लाइफ में कि मेरे से जो बात कर रहे हैं मैं उनको नीचे ना दिखाऊँ या उनके ऊपर हँसूँ नहीं। क्योंकि मैं उनके ऊपर हँसूँगा तो ज़ाहिर-सी बात है वो मेरे किसी न किसी बात पे मुझ पे भी हँसेंगे। तो वो सब चीज़ सीखने के बाद अभी हाँ, कि मैं ये कुछ भी मतलब कर सकता हूँ, बड़े लोगों से भी बात कर सकता हूँ। पहले तो बड़े लोगों से बात करने जाओ तो मतलब समझ ही नहीं आता था कि मतलब उनसे कैसे बात करना है, क्या बोलूँ उनको मैं? मतलब हमारी बात तो उनको मतलब सर के ऊपर से जाती थी पहले। दीदी लोग की भी पहले सर के ऊपर से जाती थी क्योंकि हम लोग मुंबई के टपोरी भाषा में बात करते थे अपुन-टपुन करके। तो उस कारण से मतलब कोई बात करने को तैयार नहीं था हमसे। तो हमारे जो सर लोग थे उन लोग भी बोलते थे तुमसे बात करने का कुछ मतलब ही नहीं है। तो ये सर्कल के बाद अभी मैं ऐसा है कि किसी से भी मतलब बात कर सकता हूँ। मुझे इंग्लिश उतनी नहीं आती, मतलब थोड़ी बहुत ही आती है। लेकिन हिंदी में मैं बात कोई भी पर्सन रहेगा मेरे सामने में बात करने के लिए मतलब अभी ऐसा है कि मैं हाँ, हिंदी प्रॉपर हिंदी में बात कर सकता हूँ, हिंदी या मराठी में। नहीं तो पहले तो इतना ही था मेरा एक्सपीरियंस। तो मैंने बहुत कुछ सीखा है यहाँ से और मैं सर्कल पिछले 4 साल से जॉइन कर रहा हूँ। तो आई होप कि मैं आगे भी इसी तरह अभी भी मरता हूँ सर्कल के लिए कि कब होगा और आगे भी इसी तरह सर्कल जॉइन करता ही रहूँगा और आप लोग से दोबारा मिलने का मौका मिला तो ज़रूर मिलूँगा। चांस देने के लिए थैंक यू सो मच। बाय।
Thank you very much, Rizwan. I think Rizwan shared. I've known Rizwan to always crib every time I propose a question, saying that where do you think of these questions from? And so it's been amazing. But today, when we were doing some reflection, he was like, "Circle taught me not to run away from difficult questions in life." So he shared about how he used to not like circles earlier, but now he loves circle and he cannot live without circles. He shared about how circle was a part of the farming project that we did in David Sassoon, and through the circle process, like in the farming project, they would sit together and they would ask questions of what did you learn today when you did weeding, what did you learn about your life. So those kind of questions then became integrated part of the farming project. He says that he's missed very few circles after he came out, and he's learned a lot from all the people who attended the circle, because when they share about their problems, he's able to understand how to deal and navigate through life, and he feels like he's ready now.
And coming out of the institution, Mumbai was a different world. It was a difficult world for them, but circles gave them the strength to move forward. And yeah, I guess more or less this was it. He said he learned a lot of values from the circle which he uses in his life, like respect. The children have a very different Mumbai dialect, which is mostly used in a very not used in official setups. And so he learned Hindi, like, which is an official language or a more colloquial language in the circles, and he picked it up because otherwise they didn't know how to communicate. And also about how this how he learned how to respect others and never to pull anybody down and never to laugh at anybody, because if he did laugh at somebody else, then they will laugh at him also. And circle is something that he's pretty much addicted to. He didn't use the word addicted. So I think we mostly work with, Ashena works with children, boys in conflict with law and in need of care and protection. But the lockdown gifted us girls, and I am really proud actually to invite Dimple, who was a part of the circles during the lockdown, which we started with the girls. And these are all children who are youth. They are in aftercare or living or have come out of some institutions and are living with families. And one thing that I want to definitely say is that Dimple was right here with me, and she was supposed to attend the call from here, but one of our other circle members fainted in the office, and so Dimple went back to her office, took her and put her in her house, and now she's taking the call from the house. So I'm really this is exactly what the circle did for these kids, and I'm really proud of that. Dimple, आपका टर्न बेटा. आपका लॉकडाउन का एक्सपीरियंस, सर्कल का एक्सपीरियंस, सर्कल आपके लिए क्या है, आपने क्या सीखा, उसके बारे में शेयर करना है.
हाय एवरीवन, गुड इवनिंग ऑल. मैं आप सबसे मिलके बहुत खुश हूँ और मुझे अपना एक्सपीरियंस बताने का मौका मिला, इसलिए मैं बहुत खुश हूँ और थैंक यू. मैं एक केयर लीवर्स हूँ और आफ्टर केयर यूथ हम लोग है कि हम लोग ये जो कोविड चल रहा था उन 6 महीनों में हमें बहुत दिक्कतें आई. फर्स्ट हमें ये क्वेश्चन था कि आगे जाके हम क्या करेंगे, और क्योंकि हॉस्टल वाले जॉब के लिए भेज नहीं रहे थे तो हमारा फ्यूचर कैसा हम आगे जाके कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि हाथ में मनी नहीं थी, जॉब नहीं कर रहे थे. तो बहुत बड़ा सवाल था हमें कि आगे जाके क्या करेंगे, क्योंकि हॉस्टल वाले हमें समझ नहीं पा रहे थे. और उसी 6 महीनों में हम आशियाना फाउंडेशन से जुड़े और आशियाना फाउंडेशन से हमें हर हफ्ते सेशंस होते थे और 3 से 5 वो जो सर्कल हम अटेंड कर रहे थे, उसमें मैं और मेरे जैसे और भी 13 लड़कियां थी वो सर्कल में. और उस सर्कल में मैं ये सीखी कि मैं अपने इमोशंस को समझने लगी. मैं बहुत गुस्सा करती हूँ, मैं जल्दी इरिटेट हो जाती हूँ, वो मैं कंट्रोल करना सीखी. और गुस्सा में क्यों कर रही हूँ, कहाँ कर रही हूँ, कहाँ करना चाहिए, ये मैं समझ गई. मेरा कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल बढ़ गया. और आशियाना से मुझे मेंटली सपोर्ट मिला फर्स्ट, और इमोशनली बहुत सपोर्ट मिला, क्योंकि मैं किसी से जो बातें नहीं कर सकती थी वो मैंने सर्कल में बहुत सारी बातें की, वो भी दिल खोल के बातें की किसी मतलब, और इतनी दिल खोल के बातें की कि मुझे इतना कॉन्फिडेंट था कि मेरी पर्सनल बातें ग्रुप से मतलब सर्कल से बाहर नहीं जाएगी. इतने कॉन्फिडेंस से मैंने अपना इमोशंस, मेरे पास्ट में जो हुआ वो मैंने सब बोल दिया था. और मेरे और भी बहुत सारे फ्रेंड्स थे, उसमें से मेरी एक फ्रेंड थी जिन्होंने एक्चुअली में सुसाइड अटेम्प्ट कर लिया था. लेकिन आशियाना फाउंडेशन से जब हम सर्कल अटेंड करते करते उसने ना अपना कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल बढ़ गया, उसे इमोशनली सबसे ज्यादा सपोर्ट मिला. तो वो अभी अच्छे से जॉब भी कर रही है और है ना, वो इतनी खुश है, मतलब उतनी खुश नहीं है वो मैं बोल नहीं सकती, लेकिन जो वो सोच रही थी वो उससे वो उभर के आ गई है। मतलब बहुत अच्छे से वो अभी बात करती है। मतलब उसे कोई ज्यादा ये भी, वो बोल रही थी कि मैं अच्छी नहीं दिखती तो मेरे कोई फ्रेंड्स नहीं होते, लेकिन ऐसा नहीं है। हम लोग उसके बहुत अच्छे फ्रेंड्स हैं। हमने हर बार, सब लोगों ने उसे बहुत मदद किया, हर बार उसके साथ रहे, उसको हर टाइम ऊपर रखा। और एक लड़की थी जिसमें बात करने के लिए कॉन्फिडेंस ही नहीं था, वो कभी बात ही नहीं करती थी। वो उसके बाद फिर से सर्कल अटेंड करते करते उसने बात करने का तरीका चेंज हो गया, वो खुल के बात करने लगी। और एक लड़की थी जो मेरी फ्रेंड है, वो भी, उसको 12th वो फेल थी, लेकिन है ना, उसने हर टाइम 12th देने की कोशिश की, वो हर टाइम फेल हुई। तो उसने अपना कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल, मतलब जो 12th देना है उसको, उसने पीछे हट गई थी वो, कि मुझे नहीं देना है, मैं हार गई हूँ। लेकिन जब से ये हम लोग ने सर्कल चालू किया ना, तब से वो बोली कि मैं अभी दूंगी, एग्जाम दूंगी। ऐसे हुआ। तो वो अभी उसने अभी तो ये एग्जाम के लिए फॉर्म भी फिल की है, अभी वो 12th के लिए एग्जाम भी देने वाली है। और ऐसे बहुत सारे मुझे एक्सपीरियंस मिले आशियाना से। और सबसे ज्यादा अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस मेरा है कि मुझे इतना कॉन्फिडेंस मिला ना, कि मैंने लॉकडाउन के दौरान ही अपना खुद का मतलब रेंट पे खुद से घर ले लिया। इतना मेरा कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल बढ़ गया और मुझे सपोर्ट ज्यादा मिला आशियाना से। उस सपोर्ट के वजह से मैं थोड़ा और कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल बढ़ गया और मैं आज खुद के घर पे हूँ और बहुत खुश हूँ। और मुझे कुछ भी प्रॉब्लम आती है तो फर्स्ट मैं साची दीदी से शेयर करती हूँ। उनसे शेयर करने के बाद मैं थोड़ा रिलैक्स फील करती हूँ और उस जो शेयर करती हूँ ना, उसके लिए मैं और ज्यादा सोचती हूँ कि क्या कर सकते हैं। और ये जो सर्कल हमारा होता था ना, उसमें ना सबसे ज्यादा अच्छा क्या लगता था कि सबकी बातें सुनने का और सबके इमोशंस को रिस्पेक्ट था। सबके बातें सुनते थे, मतलब हर लड़की के लिए हर सेम रिस्पेक्ट थी और सबको सेम, याद ही नहीं आ रहा वो, मतलब वही मुझे बोलना है। पर आशियाना से जुड़ के हमें बहुत अच्छा लगा और मुझे ऐसे ही जुड़े रहना है। जब तक मैं साची दीदी के कांटेक्ट में हूँ, ऐसे ही मैं आशियाना से जुड़ते रहूंगी और मैं और भी मेरे जैसे और भी फ्रेंड्स लोग को जुड़ाऊंगी, क्योंकि मुझे नहीं पता पर मेरे जैसे बहुत केयरलीवर्स है, वो भी बहुत प्रॉब्लम्स में है, बहुत मेंटली इशू, डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस, ऐसे बहुत सारे मेरे फ्रेंड्स है। मुझे भी उनसे बहुत मिलाना है और ऐसे ही किसी को सपोर्ट करना है। थैंक यू।
Thank you so much, Dimple. I will quickly sum up what Dimple said. She said that in the 6 months of the COVID, there were a lot of issues that the care leavers were facing. These are children who stepped out of the institution, and there was no money, no job. They didn't know how to, the hostel didn't allow them to step out. And so they were really stuck in one place without any plan for the future. We started the circle program during that time, and it helped them understand their emotions, control. She's somebody who has a lot of anger issues, and it really helped her understand how to deal with her anger and express it in a healthy way. Her confidence increased. In fact, it increased so much that she was able to leave the hostel during the lockdown and have her own rented place. She also shared how, there are things about her life that she's not shared with anybody, which she has confidently shared in the circle because she knows it won't go out anywhere. She also mentioned about a friend of hers who attempted suicide before the program had begun, but through the program, like this is somebody who also used to do a lot of body shaming and had lost all her confidence, and through the program she kind of gathered a lot of confidence, is now working and trying to build her life again. There was another girl who did not speak at all, and throughout the circles, every Thursday meeting together, she opened up slowly. And then she spoke about her friend who had lost hope to give her 12th standard exams, and because she had flunked twice, and now she's once again giving another attempt to to complete her 12th standard exam. So that's from our caregivers. I don't know how much time we have, Arlene, but if we have like maybe 3 minutes, then I can just quickly show photos and share how we integrate the circles.
Yeah, 2 minutes, Sachi? Is it possible?
Sure. 2 minutes is more than enough. Okay.
Great.
Okay, that's not the one. Sorry, 1 second. I'll just open up the PPT. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to run through this, but this is how we started circles. Our first circle was in Dongri with really little kids, CNCP, and it was all about how do we change the institution. And the kids came up with the idea of what are the three big things that they want to do. So they wanted to clean the clothes, they wanted to clean their bedding, and they wanted to clean their room. And so that's what we began with. That was like the outcome of our first circle in Dongri, which was like one of the most memorable circle for me. Our farming project, which Rizwan spoke about, was always ended up in this little hallway where we sat with the volunteers and children together, and we we shared food, we spoke about what you learned, what did the butterfly teach you, what did the mango plant teach you, so those kind of things. And we integrated the circle into the farming project. This is the circle that Bichitra mentioned about at the beach, and it really doesn't matter where you're doing the circle, as far as it's just a safe space. It doesn't matter if the circle is a square, but as far as the values and the essence of the circle is maintained, we have a safe space. These are some circle-based activities that we do, just like how Shivangi spoke. The picture at the bottom where the boy is coloring a heart. We said that, okay, when do you feel peaceful, and draw the colors of peace. And he said, I've never felt love or peace in my life. What am I going to draw? Or we use clay to show emotions and express emotions in the circle. So using different tools in the circle also helps quite a bit. Again, this was a dance program which was put up in like literally 3 weeks, and it happens every year. So this was the first year, and the second picture is of the second year. And every dance session started with meditation. It started with a circle. It started with talking about how you're feeling. Then they went into the dance, and we spoke about how we want to change our life after this program. This is another circle of children who leave the institution, and they come out. Of course, a chart which is made by the children on feelings. And this is how we integrate circles in festivals. So this is a Diwali circle that we did, where the children passed on a light from one child to another, and they shared what is it that they want to focus on to bring light in which area of their life, and at the same time who they had to pass that light on to somebody else and say that I'm going to support this person to bring that light to him. And so that's how kind of creating a community and a family structure. Again, this is a photo from a trek we took all the kids out, and we began the trek with a circle. We reached the top of the mountain, we did another circle, and then we came down, we did a closing circle. So literally breaking the circle into different parts to kind of integrate it into an activity. That's that. Thank you so much, Nimisha. I have gone really overboard. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sachi. Thank you so very much. खास करके बिचित्रा, रिजवान, डिम्पल, आप सबको बहुत 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 थैंक यू. सब लोग चैट में आप एक बार, मैं आपकी साची दीदी से भी रिक्वेस्ट करूंगी कि वो आपको बताएं कि सब लोग कितना आप लोगों को थैंक यू बोल रहे हैं. आप लोगों ने बहुत बहुत अच्छे, बहुत सुंदर तरीके से बोला, बहुत कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ बोला. बहुत मेरे ख्याल से आज हम सबको इसीलिए समय की फिक्र नहीं थी, क्योंकि हम लोगों को आपसे सुन के कितना अच्छा लगा. और आपकी जो पूरी की पूरी आपकी जर्नी है, जो आपका सफर रहा है, साची दीदी के साथ, इन सब चीज़ों को समझने के साथ, जानने के साथ, ये सुन के हमको आज सबका दिन बन गया मेरे ख्याल से। तो थैंक यू, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप लोगों को, आप तीनों को इतनी सुंदरता के साथ।
आपको भी थैंक यू हमें मतलब हमारे एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करने के लिए।
Most welcome, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sachi, for bringing these wonderful, wonderful children to us today, and for all the beautiful, brilliant work that you do. Without any ado, I will just take one question which has been asked for Aarti and Shivangi very quickly, and then we can move to the final wrap-up session. Aarti and Shivangi, this is for you. Hello, I just wanted to ask, how do we ensure that the values of the circle are carried outside the circle too, especially if the outside environment, like their home, is not the most conducive for it, or it doesn't share the same values? Aarti?
Thank you, Anusha. I think that was very beautifully said right now by Dimple, Vichitra, and Rizwan, that how their relationships have really developed outside. And I think we couldn't say it any better. In our experience also too, we've seen when children speak about deep things like having suicidal thoughts, others have come together to support them, not shame them. And we've seen that impact to an extent. It's something that they just want to take out. I think that's all I'll say for now.
Shivangi, thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think I have much to add. I just wanted to say that when we have values in a circle, it's all of ours to keep, and the beauty of it is that we all come up with it together. So that, I mean, there's a togetherness in being able to uphold those values. And if say we are unable to fully commit to it, we have each other to remind us. And it's not just the circle keeper that's holding that space. So yeah, but and I can say from personal experience that it's been easy for me to also recognize values and take them away from the circle. So and as the youth share today, how it has impacted their lives outside as well. So that's all I leave everybody with.
Thank you so much, Aarti, Shivangi, and I think that's basically the takeaway, that it is the children and their resilience which sort of carries forward those values that they inculcate from restorative processes. Over to you, Arlene, for the vote of thanks. That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Nimisha. I know everyone is just, our hearts are so full listening to this and being part of this. I would call it nothing less than a feast of such rich and beautiful facilitation of restorative practices across the world. Let me start by first expressing our deepest gratitude to Belinda Hopkins. You have made such a beautifully simple and presentation that crystallized the depth and the breadth of the work that you have done, your core beliefs and aspirations, the goals and mission statements that were so brilliantly articulated and fleshed out for students, teachers, and management of schools was just so refreshing, and helps us to create a frame for the work that we all do, not just in schools, but as restorative practitioners. And I think, Nimisha, when you started by quoting Professor Karl Stauffer, who said it was not just a justice response, restorative practices, but it is a social justice movement. And I think what Professor Belinda Hopkins said resonated so much with that this work is the goal 5 that she listed, in which we all should aim to collective responsibility for the choices we make, to be socially responsible, democratic, and fully accountable. I think both these quotes and these statements resonate so beautifully for the vision that we all share for restorative practices. I would thank you, Professor Hopkins. This is just going to be the beginning of many conversations that we hope to have with you to strengthen the work that we are doing here in India. Madam Suman Bolar, we are so delighted that you and the entire team from Innisfree House School has spent this time with us and shared your experience. I just love what you said, that the world needs more gentleness, a oneness of human experience, and that children have the power to change this world. We are so inspired and privileged to partner with Innisfree House School in journeying with you to achieve this vision towards a more gentler world. We were so delighted and happy to work with your teachers, and especially your statement that we all need to chip away and push back at what social media and what the world is offering us in terms of violence and the negative attitudes. We need to chip away slowly, chip, 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 chop, chop, chop. And then we discover the goodness that is within ourselves and each other. And together we move forward. Wonderfully articulated. Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to especially thank Madam Aarti Dinesh. Ma'am, your commitment and the way that you capture the challenges, as well as the commitment that you teachers also need to step back and to enable the students to come forward. So much resonating with what Paulo Freire says in terms of that, there's no teaching without learning. Students, Risha, Samitha, and Siddharth, and Mihir. It was such a pleasure to hear you and to share your experiences. Such a short time, but so brilliantly articulated. Thank you so much. Siddharth, I love the way you said, kind of cool to interact with my teacher as a friend. Wow, isn't that what we all yearn for? Where that power dynamic has changed and we treat each other as equals in circle. So beautifully said, Siddharth. Aarti, as always, brilliant. The work that the Council to Secure Justice has been doing in the observation home. Thank you for sharing and for that wonderful report. I'm just so excited and all of us eager to read. What a wonderful title, Bonds of Hope. Brilliant, and looking forward to learning more from your work, you and the entire team. Shivangi, my dear colleague, so lovely to listen to you and the work that you have shared of how we have all journeyed together. You as a person and your deep, passionate engagement with children was so beautifully presented today from the work that you shared and the examples that you shared. Sachi and your team. Vichitra, Rizwan, and Dimple, you were like stars tonight. I think for us, we're so grateful to see the second generation of the fruits of Sachi's labor. The hours, the years of work that she's done in very, very challenging situations. She's given her heart and soul to this work. And we see today these bright, shining stars of children who have themselves gone through such difficult times. And it cannot be better said than comparing them to our Diwali lamps. We just finished the festival of Diwali, and Vichitra, Rizwan, and Dimple, you are like little lamps that I will not forget. Your shining, आपका जो आपका sharing है, आप एक दिया जैसे हैं. आपका जो प्यार आपने दिखाया, आपने जो सीख लिया है रेस्टोरेटिव सर्कल से, वो हम सब के लिए एक तोहफा है, क्योंकि हम आप के जो स्टोरी सुन के हमको इतना हौसला मिला, हमको इतना कॉन्फिडेंस मिला, ये जो काम है इतना इम्पोर्टेंट है. बहुत deep धन्यवाद आप तीनों को, और to Sachi, to you for your wonderful work. I will close with our Indian gesture of Namaste, where we all greet each other as from the heart. We recognize the goodness and the divine in each one. And to each one who has participated here, the participants who have stayed for this long journey, Namaste to everybody, to you, Belinda Hopkins, to Sachi, to Dr. Sangeeta, to the Industry House team and the students, to our Ashiana stars, to everyone here today, the Enfold team included. Thank you and Namaste.